What's up, everyone? This is Mike Bledsoe, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week, I interview Mike Bledsoe, CEO of Barbell Shrugged and Barbell Business. Most of you probably have heard him on his own podcast, Barbell Shrugged, as well as his newer one, Barbell Business. Mike is a guy that I've known for the last few years and look up to for several different reasons, whether it be, how to become a better person or business owner or leader, and so much more. Before we get started, if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, you love it, and you haven't done so already, please head to the iTunes store real quick, subscribe, leave me a review. Enjoy the show. What's up, everyone? This is Mike Bledsoe. I'm here with the legend, Michael Bledsoe. What's up, Mike?
Man, just living life, enjoying San Diego, and I'm super appreciative that you would bring me on your show.
Absolutely, man. It's taken long enough.
What's wrong with you?
I know, man. Most people that have listened to this for some time know that you were a huge inspiration for me, not only starting the podcast, but how I do the podcast, how I've learned to overcome some of the fear and self-doubt with this thing. So I'm super pumped to do this, man. And it's been too long since we've chatted. So kind of selfishly, I have a lot of questions that really I'm just interested in hearing. And I've heard once, if you want to be interesting, then you have to be interested. So Hopefully people get a lot out of this one. I'll start this off by saying I look up to you for so many different reasons, and I respect you in the way that you live your life physically, emotionally, intelligently, as well as from a business standpoint. And so I'm going to kind of break up the questions into some different parts because I want to learn about lots of different things. So I met you January of 2013, I believe, or 14. And then later that year, did your first ever mastermind, Barbell Shrugged Mastermind. And I'll go ahead and say right now that mastermind from a business standpoint was absolutely mind-blowing. And without that experience, there's no possible way that Brute Strength would be where it is today. I think, we're great programmers and coaches, but you guys taught us how to interact with people, how to reach more people in a way that I never knew existed. Along with that, while I was there, honestly, just like some offhand things that you would say either in conversations or maybe something in your lectures that wasn't even the topic of what you were talking about really, really hit me. And what I'm talking about is I had this sense that you wanted to be the best you could possibly be in every area of your life. And before that point, personally, when it came to relationships or being a good person or stuff or anything like that, that's definitely the mentality that I had. But you seem to want to do that for everything in your life, whether it be, health and longevity, relationships, personal development, business, etc. So I'm wondering, and I would kind of call that, the self-actualizing person, right? You want to become the best in everything you can. Is there anything else that you call what I'm describing, and can you kind of just speak to that philosophy?
Yeah, I think self-actualization is the most modern term. So it's funny because we keep packaging the same things into different names to make it more digestible by the modern human being, so it doesn't offend people. So we use words like self-actualized to describe somebody who has a spiritual practice, or has discovered that that we are all one, and we are all, and everything that we do good for ourselves is good for others, and that's really the self-actualization thing is funny because anyone who fits in that category or is seeking self-actualization, there's the spiritual undertone and the understanding that we are all in this together, and to consider myself separate from others. The moment I start acting as a separate individual, that then that would then mean that I'm not self-actualized. The self-actualization piece is actually a great way to smuggle that in and without offending people who may not be friendly to some older terminology. And so that's for one. I think there was like a two-part question. I forgot the second part.
Yeah, just speak to kind of your philosophy of wanting to be the best in every area of your life, if you would.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's another word that we use now before I move on to that, which is instead of the word meditation, we use the word what is it that people say?
Instead of meditation.
Yeah, they're using the words. I can't remember. Mindfulness.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, being mindful. Like I have a mindfulness practice or something like that. It's like, well, you could just let people know that you're meditating. However, you run that word by our parents and they squirm a little bit because they don't quite understand what it means. But I would say that what I am now seeking in my life is quality, and so up until a few years ago, it was all about the quantity. It was like, how strong can I be? It was always about quantity. It was I was counting my protein, fat, and carbs. It was about the quantity of those three macronutrients. There was how many members could I get in my gym?
Right.
It was all about the quantity. How much money could you amass? How much stuff could you collect? How big of a house could you have? How many girlfriends could you have at once? It's like, and I would say that at this point, my understanding of what the word quality actually means is improving all the time. It's as if my focus is always improving. And so my understanding of quality a year ago is different than my understanding of quality now. And so for me, my philosophy in life is in every moment being as present as possible, and so that I'm doing everything with the utmost quality. And I am being mindful as I do things, or it's a moving meditation as I go throughout my day. From brushing my teeth and even changing the way I brush my teeth instead of just being on autopilot, to when I'm washing the dishes, just really being present with the dishes and appreciating my time doing that, to the words I use and being careful in what I say and how I say it and how it might be perceived by others. The goal of the words I use is to inspire others and to get people to change the way that they behave and maybe to raise their awareness as well. So in all these things, I'm seeking quality. I like to think I am anyways. There's always blind spots where you don't even know that there's aspects of your life where quality could be improved. So that's something to be considered by most people. Is first the awareness of an aspect of your life, and then the conscious choice to bring more quality and focus into that aspect of your life. So for me, when it comes to training, I don't even necessarily think about how much weight is on the bar anymore, or what exactly, or what I weigh, or how big I am, or how I look. It's more about, is the quality of my movement always improving? I've been training for 20 years now. I'm 35, started training when I was 15, and I am always looking for ways to improve how I move and the quality of my tissue through movement, and then also the quality of my tissue through nutrition. So now I'm looking at, how can I do more with less? So how do I actually eat less while doing more. And so while getting a bigger output. And a better quality of life. And kind of like, and then through that lens, the way that I'm measuring quality is, I have my greater purpose on earth in serving others is what I'm doing by doing it better going to help me to serve others better. And can I do that with less? Can I be more economic? Can I be more? And economics is just a study of efficiencies. So for me, it's can I be more efficient with the things that I have, do more with less, and be more simple?
That's a fucking great answer, man. I love it. I love it. What comes to mind is, kind of what you said about having higher quality in your business. And it's a really simple mindset to switch from trying to get as many members as possible to trying to affect the members that you have in the greatest possible way. But that seems to be a much more effective and fulfilling way of living your life, as well as a better way to do business. That's awesome, man.
Not many people are seeking quality. So if you start doing it, you'll stand out quickly.
Right. A race to the top of a different mountain.
That's right.
I want to talk about health, physical, and stuff like that for a little bit. What are you currently focused on physically? A little more specifically than the quality piece, and how has that kind of changed over the last few years?
I would say nutritional. So overall, I'm looking to improve my lifestyle as a whole. That serves, the healthiest body that I can have. And, the healthier my body is, the better I can do whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing. And so right now, in regard to nutrition and food, I'm playing around a lot with, a lot of people hate the word. And it's funny is I used to hate the word too, is superfoods. Mm-hmm. It's funny. A lot of things that I'm into now, I used to roll my eyes at. So it's really funny how the tables got turned.
Yep.
I even posted something recently and I used the word superfoods and somebody gave me the eye roll and started putting, they started trolling me on the internet, and I'm totally cool with that. Troll away, folks. But I'm really seeking the highest quality foods, and that is packing as many micronutrients into every calorie as possible. So going after, a lot of different types of fungus, different types of mushrooms, shiitake, cordyceps, reishi. There's probably about a dozen different types of medicinal mushrooms I'm putting in my smoothie every day. And then I'm looking at, I have a lot of friends who are vegan, and I'm not vegan. However, they have to work, a proper vegan has to work really hard in order to get all the nutrients they need in their body, mm-hmm. which means they've adopted a lot of practices which the average person doesn't even think about. And so they've implemented a lot of things into their diet, which are pretty cool, plant-wise. So I've adopted a lot of those things, a lot of spirulina, chlorella, sacha inchi, hemp, a lot of those types of products into my diet, while maintaining the highest level of meat as well. So, if I'm eating beef, it's grass-fed. I'm talking to the farmer at the farmer's market. For vegetables, it's so funny is I have really gone out of my way to seek out the finest vegetables and fruits. And what I've found is if I just go to Whole Foods and buy some berries, they're gross, because I've been eating really cool local organic stuff, and I didn't even realize it till one day I just got some regular berries from the store, and I was like, these don't taste nearly as good. They taste bland. And so what I found is, and seeking out the highest quality food, is that just from a flavoring perspective, I didn't realize how bland all the food was that I used to eat. And now I can actually taste a vegetable, and I know if it's packed with nutrients or not. And it's really sad because, the way that industrialized farming works right now is we over farm our soil and it's devoid of the minerals. So the plants don't necessarily have all the nutrients they used to have. So now we have to supplement. It's an interesting little conundrum we put ourselves in. And then physically, I've been training with a lot more compassion for my body. So I'm not really judging myself from day to day the way I used to. I don't actually say today was a good workout or not. The only time I would say that a workout was not good is if I wasn't present during the training session. That's my judgment now. It's not, oh, I felt weak or I was slow or this or that. It's more of, was I present during the session? Was my mind wandering? Or was I focused on my breath and connecting my breath to my movement? And so what I do for training right now is actually a mix of I go in the gym maybe 2, maybe 3 days a week. And when I'm in the gym, I actually do our Shrugged strength challenge that we have. And and then the other half, I would say the other 2/3 of my training or my movement is I'm in the ocean, paddleboarding, surfing, or I'm running and doing flow work on the beach. Or when I'm at home, I do a lot of work with clubs and maces now. And what's cool about the clubs and maces is there's a lot of lateral and rotational work, which is not common in CrossFit. And so because I did CrossFit and weightlifting for so long, I've basically got a lot of work done in the sagittal plane, and I'm not as developed in other parts of my body. So now I'm doing things like clubs and maces that are really helping me connect my body all the way around, and it feels more connected. So even though I was, squatting upwards of 500 pounds or something a couple years ago, I feel stronger because I feel like everything from my fingers down to my toes is connected. So that's kind of how I judge my training now, is how connected does my whole body feel? Am I present? Is my movement connected to my breath? And, if my knee is popping as I'm crawling on the ground, then I know that I'm disconnected somewhere, and I bring my attention back to my breath, and I connect my movement to it, and then all of a sudden that knee stops popping and I start flowing much more efficiently. It's an interesting thing.
Wow. What do you attribute that to? Is that gives you the awareness of how to hold your body and your posture, or is it something else?
It's I think for most people, especially when you're doing high intensity exercise, I think people get introduced. I was introduced to high intensity exercise without the awareness of quality of movement. So, and this was even before CrossFit. This is back when I was doing a lot of running and swimming and all this kind of stuff. And what ends up happening is we end up doing a lot of chest breathing. We're not getting full breaths when training. I know a lot of athletes, they focus on getting those deep breaths when they're resting, but not necessarily always when they're moving, And what ends up happening is if you're somebody who's doing a lot of chest breathing, then your diaphragm is getting cut short, and those muscles are all connected down through your hips. And so what can happen is if you're not getting full activation all the way through, then your nervous system isn't going to fire certain things, and you're going to get an overcompensation. And now certain muscles aren't firing, and others are having to work too hard, and now you end up with a knee that clicks. And so, I found that through, I've been working with a woman, Teresa Larson. She runs Movement RX here in San Diego. She does a lot of work with connecting through the breath. There's another chiropractor out here who we did a lot of breath work in while treating some of the dysfunctions that I have in my own body. And I started taking a lot of the practices from therapy and applying them in my movement practice. And then just kind of like basically on an intuitive level, I go, you know what? I think I could move better if I was more focused on my breath. And I started really focusing on a deep breath. I started running my breath. It's actually kind of funny how I figured this out. I started running my breath down. I imagine as I'm moving that the air is going down the front of my body and stops basically down at the taint, and then what you could say the perineum, that's the muscle,
Right.
and then returns back up the spine. And I visualize while I'm moving my breath running in a circulatory pattern. So down the front of my body and up the back, and it kind of goes up through my head and back through my nose. So one of the things I've also been doing is I don't do a lot of mouth breathing anymore. So I've adopted the idea that your tongue should leave the roof of your mouth when eating and speaking only. So, if you're a competitive CrossFitter, when it's go time, you're going to open your mouth and you're going to get some air for sure. Or if you're swimming, you're going to definitely use your mouth to breathe. But for the most part, most people they're way too big of mouth breathers. So so what ends up happening is I actually found this through the way I got this idea from tantric practices, in fact. So the idea is that you would run your breath like that, and there's a circuit of energy running through your body, and there's two opportunities for that circuit to be broken. One is the tongue leaving the roof of your mouth. That's a circuit breaker. And the other one is your perineum, so your ability to contract your pelvic floor and have control of your pelvic floor. And we know in physical therapy that the pelvic floor is extremely important, and your ability to activate, and to contract that is necessary in the health of your back and just everything that's going on in your body. And a lot of people, they have their pelvic floor is dysfunctional, and then they end up with all these problems. They can't really figure out what's going on, and they don't know that that's not normal, and they're too afraid to go to a physical therapist or a doctor and say, hey, there's something wrong with me down there in my taint, because that's an uncomfortable subject for a lot of people to go after. So just want to throw that out there. I don't know how I got over here. Thanks for.
I don't either, man. I'm fucking loving it.
Stuff out here, Michael. Jeez.
I love it. Honestly, deep breathing and mindfulness is, you can look in any industry, any discipline, and apply some mindfulness to it, and you're going to get better. I think it's, kind of a universal thing that can improve any area of your life. So I love that you said that, man.
But I want to. I think people just laugh at this. Is what I need to say is I got better at moving when I'm training because I was trying to get better at sex. So it all comes back. It all comes back to that, as we all know. The same reason we start working out in the first place, right?
That's it, man. So with all this, with a million websites out there and podcasts, et cetera, what are your kind of go-tos for information on nutrition and supplementation and stuff like that?
I actually just talk to people.
Okay.
I really don't listen to very many podcasts.
That's ironic.
It's kind of hilarious. I'm too busy doing them. I don't know. You've probably encountered this a little bit. Is when you get into the game of interviewing people. I've interviewed a lot of people who've written books about certain things, and you interview them, and you find out that the things they wrote, in a book was their ideas 2 years ago, and they've even found even more since then. And then you get in a conversation. And hanging out, what I try to do is hang out with the experts. I might read somebody's book or something on a topic, but as soon as I start feeling like all I have to do is know that I want to know more from that person, and I don't even worry about reading the book, I just figure out a way to meet them in person. So one example of this is like Laird Hamilton and Brian McKenzie are working on this XPT experience thing, and I have had enough conversations with those guys to know that I want to get in on the next one. Mm-hmm. So I just buy my way in. Like if I want to know, nothing's better than a course or a workshop or just doing, a book is usually like a book is just an introduction to an idea. A podcast is just an introduction to an idea. I think it's really naive to think that someone could listen to your show and think that if they think they're getting more than 1% of what you actually know about training and nutrition, then they're really naive. They should be, spend a week training with you, and that's where the real download is at. Mm-hmm. And going back to quality is, a book or a podcast is kind of the quantity piece. I know people who listen to, 15 hours of podcasts a week, but they won't spend $2,000 to spend a weekend going to a weekend seminar. So I think that people would really benefit from, when looking for educational stuff, is to jump out of their comfort zone, get in with a group of people, spend a little more money, focus their energy for a week or a weekend, and I think they would be shocked at how much faster they might be able to learn. So that's kind of my way. My learning style is experiential. And so I know that's not everybody's. I know some people can learn really well from books and from listening to podcasts. But if somebody hasn't done the experiential thing yet, I think you'll be surprised. And a lot of people say, they can't afford this or that. But I think money is usually it's the excuse. It's the easy thing to use as an excuse when you're uncomfortable, getting around a group of people and looking like a novice.
Right. I like that. I like it. So I have some personal questions for you. What is your relationship with fear and failure? How do you deal with either of those or both?
So, years ago I had a fear of failure. I think there's always layers there. So to say that I don't have it now would be kind of that would be the ego talking, and there would be a blind. Right. I would be, that's me hiding shit from myself. But I would say that as time has gone on, my relationship with fear and failure has improved tremendously, and I've seen the different layers of how it impacts my life in a negative way or in a way I don't prefer. And what I do is when I have a sense of fear, I can feel it in my body. It shows up in my chest and it's heavy. And I prefer not to have that feeling. And so what I've really learned to do is if my mind starts creating these thoughts that I also don't prefer, we all know about that. One negative thought slips in, and then another negative thought slips in. Next thing you know, there's this, I've made a mountain out of a molehill inside my own mind. And usually the reason is because we're avoiding the feeling of fear in our body. So we're focusing on our thoughts. So if we can create enough negative thoughts, then we won't focus on the feeling in our body. When all we have to do is drop out of our mind and put our attention and consciousness, our focus into our body, accept the feeling of fear that exists there, breathe into it and relax into it. And so instead of keeping the fear running nice and hot like it is for a lot of people, learning how to let it go and just be with it. I was talking with a girl this past weekend, and I asked her a fairly deep question. I guess I tend to be somewhat abrupt in my approach, and I learned a lesson to be a little more careful and maybe a little bit slower in my approach when asking people questions like, what do you want out of life? Out of a 22-year-old or something like that. Mm-hmm. And she kind of went into, well, not kind of, she straight up went into a panic attack. And that's an extreme case of what we're all experiencing when we're hit with fear, is we have little tiny panic attacks and where we lose control of the mind and the mind takes over. And then the fact that we over associate with the mind and we think that that's who we are and not the fact that it's merely a tool. that creates thoughts for us so we can solve problems. So anyways, yeah, I kind of went off in a deep end, but my relationship fear is that. And it's my what I try to do is part of my work that I do on myself is to always become more sensitive and to the messages that are coming in. And so when I was not as sensitive to the messages, when fear would creep in, I wouldn't recognize it as fear. I would just recognize it as negative thoughts. And then those thoughts would look like, what they would look like is they would focus on how I didn't like somebody, or how somebody did something that I didn't think was fair, or someone did something that was stupid and it's now impacting me, or I would focus on, how I did or said something previously and I was judging myself harshly for it, and I was replaying that situation in my mind. And so all those things our mind create to distract us from the fear. And so when we're distracted from the fear and we're controlled by the mind, what ends up happening is we end up in a spiral, in a downward spiral. And that's usually when somebody can't seem to accomplish their goals and they can't seem to get ahead and things just aren't working out in their life. It's because their mind has done a really fantastic job of distracting themselves from what's really going on. And the best way to move past that is to stop and directly face the fear. And that is allow yourself to feel it in your body, breathe into it. And then, if you are successful in developing that practice, then you might be surprised at how the chatter in your head just kind of goes away.
I love that, man. I'm sure you've heard it. Any feeling felt fully lasts no longer than 7 minutes. I've played with that for a long time, and it's true. Like getting into the body, feeling it just kind of dissipates, no matter how strong something is.
I would say there was something recently that happened maybe a couple months ago where somebody shared something with me that, quite possibly could have really hurt my feelings. Mm-hmm. And I kind of knew it was coming, but I didn't know what it was. So because of that, I had this basically mantra going through my mind. I was going, all right, when this news, which I would not prefer, is delivered, let's focus on the body and breathe into it. And I'm not kidding. It did not feel good. And in 60 seconds, it was completely gone. And I didn't have any of the negative thoughts or visuals, or my imagination didn't run anything. And it was actually a really pleasant experience.
Wow.
I really felt alive, and there was no negative consequence for any of what was going on. It was amazing.
That's awesome, man. What experiences or influences in your life do you attribute to your the way that you lead, like parents, sports, military, psychedelics, etc.?
Oh, geez. That's a loaded question. Every single thing that's happened in my life up to this point has made an impact on how I lead. And I've had to, my job is to become more aware of the things that are the parts of my life that enabled me to be a good leader. And also it's my job to identify the things that are part of who I am that disable my ability to be a good leader. And my job is to identify all the good things and to try to bring them in consciously into what I do. And when I identify the things that don't serve me as a leader, is to discard those things from my life. The process I'm referring to is called integration. And that is being able to have the self-awareness of my own personal history and to replay moments of my life that have impacted me now, and really look at those situations objectively, and make the conscious choice of, oh, I see how that impacted me, and the story and basically the program that's running my life, I can take that code out, or I can consciously keep the code in. And so the code becomes stronger every day over time with that awareness practice. I have a leadership coach I've been working with for 2 years. So I have a leadership coach I get on the phone with every 2 weeks for 90 minutes. And, the more transparent I can be with him, the better. Because, I even do find myself wanting to hide things from him at times, because I'm afraid that he's going to highlight things that aren't serving me, that my ego wants to hang on to. Mm-hmm. And so having that coach, so anything you want to get better at, just hire a coach for it, right? So, we're coaches that have worked in fitness for however long, and, we know that if you want to get better at fitness, you hire a coach. Mm-hmm. You want to get better at nutrition, you hire a coach. Well, if you want to get better at leadership, hire a coach. And my coach isn't there to tell me what a good leader does and doesn't do. He's there to highlight in me where I might be behaving like a child and might not be showing up as my highest self. And his job is to ask me questions to help me uncover what's really going on versus what I think is going on the surface. So I would say, first and foremost, having a third party, somebody sitting outside of my own life who is not a close friend, who doesn't have any, skin in the game, really. His job is to make me uncomfortable at times. So that's been highly impactful. The practice of leadership in itself, every day that goes by, I am, whether it be via social media or I'm in meetings with my company or whatever, I'm always analyzing how I'm showing up with others. My job as a leader is to help others really show up and be their best selves, and am I enabling them to do that? And so, so I mean, the practice of leadership in itself, and not just going and doing the thing, but the more awareness you can be practicing as you're doing a thing, the better. And then I've had experiences where, the psychedelics route, or I like to call plant medicines, and I say that because these things aren't really made in a lab. You can go down to the jungles of Peru and drink ayahuasca, or go down to Mexico and sit with somebody who specializes in mushroom medicine, psilocybin, and having had those experiences with trained professionals, I have been able to uncover things in my mind which my consciousness had hidden from me, so that I really had to face some really dark things. Some people would call it the demons, mm-hmm. in order to and really shed light on parts of my life that served me for a period of time, but don't serve me anymore. I would say a lot of patterns from my childhood really impacted how I show up today. And being able to go back to my childhood in those situations, namely ayahuasca, was very good for me in that regard, where I was able to look at my childhood and relive those moments from an objective perspective, where I wasn't so emotionally tied to it, and then see exactly, oh wow, it's interesting how that has really caused me to behave the way I do now. So I've had plenty of those experiences, which each one of them have pulled back layers and helped me show up better as a person with everybody in my life, even as a leader, as a husband, as a brother, as a son. I would say that working with those plant medicines has really have unlocked all the good that's in me and allowed me to see the parts that really don't allow me to show up the best I can, and toss it out and and say that I don't want this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say, and then I'm always, I would say one of the things that have really helped me as a leader is I have a couple business partners that, we really just check each other, and we recommend books to each other. And we say, hey, there's something's going on in the business right now where this type of leadership tactic or strategy might be really beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Let's all read this one book together and see how it applies to our current situation. So
that's awesome.
I have business partners where we are not afraid to call each other out.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's afraid. Oh no, if I piss off, Doug or Rob or something, they're not going to like me anymore. Like we've all been doing business together to close to a decade, and we'll bitch slap each other if it comes down to it.
I love it, dude. That's awesome. How do you protect your time and attention? And one thing, for instance, that you showed me or introduced me to was the idea of batching, which is an incredible little tactic. In what way do you think about time and attention, and in what ways do you kind of protect it?
So attention is a skill that can be improved upon and build the capacity for. And so we all have the same amount of time. I really don't think about time in regard to, much. For me, it's more about energy. It's about how much energy am I using when I'm doing a certain thing. So if I'm using a lot of energy, it's probably something I shouldn't be doing, or I'm doing it at the wrong time. And so I have become very sensitive to if something is very draining. So if something is feeling hard or is draining, I stop and I go, okay, am I doing this out of order, or should I not be doing it all? Should it not be done at all, or is it something that should be done but be done by somebody else? Mm-hmm. And so as an entrepreneur and somebody who I have a company, I can hire people to do the things that I would prefer not to do. Mm-hmm. And in fact, anybody could hire someone to do the things they did not prefer to do. Like if you wanted someone to clean your house or mow your yard, there's always something that someone's doing. I mean, anyone who pays for electricity is paying someone else to do something that you don't want to do. If you pay your electric bill and your water bill and you run your dishwasher, well, you just paid somebody to do something you didn't want to do. It seems like an obvious thing in our society to do, but if you can extrapolate that out to other activities, then it's something we can do. So for me, if I'm doing something that is hurting my energy, if I do something for 2 or 3 hours that is draining, it pretty much messes up the rest of my day, and my ability to do anything else is really compromised. So I'm very sensitive to that. So because I'm doing things that energize me versus drain me, my ability to maintain my attention and focus over, say, 12 or 14, I was actually thinking about the end of the day yesterday. I was completely focused and in flow for 14 hours straight. And so, and that included a movement practice, that included meditation and breath work and exercise, but it also included phone meetings, and it included reading, and it included working on a project and being in some spreadsheets. And interesting, I thought about it. I was actually at the end of the day yesterday, I was replaying the day in my mind. And part of it was my wife asked me, Ashley, she said, how was your day? And I was like, I didn't just say fine. I don't do that. When she asked me how my day was, I go, you know what? It was actually really productive. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And I was focused for 14 hours straight. It was amazing. It used to be hard for me to focus for more than 5 minutes at a time. And that's because I was doing a lot of stuff I wasn't supposed to be doing. And so, and within the business, there are activities in which I might not be doing. And then for most people, I think that the job that they're doing or where they're spending their time, period, is not in line with their life's purpose. And so they feel like they have a hard time keeping their attention. It's because they're doing the wrong thing. They're out of integrity. I actually just did a Facebook Live about this, and about integrity is about being in line with your higher purpose, and anything you're doing that doesn't enable you to achieve that higher purpose is out of integrity. And when you're out of integrity, it gets tiring really fast. Another point on attention and treating it as a skill is like I was talking about before, is focusing on your feelings versus your thoughts allow you to really focus your attention. I have a meditation practice. Every morning I do breath and meditation, and I focus my attention on the air moving in and out of my nostrils. I think this morning my session was like 45 minutes, and it was the most satisfying part of my day probably. As far as attention goes, you can practice that with meditation. And then as far as, if you feel like it's hard to pay attention, you might just be doing the wrong thing. You might be doing the wrong type of job, or you might just be you might be kind of working against the grain. So I made some comments in a Facebook Live the other day that kind of pissed some people off. But, I wouldn't be surprised if you're working at Coca-Cola if it's hard to focus, because you're probably not supposed to be working there.
Right.
You're not serving humanity and the greatest good. So of course it's going to be hard. You're not doing the thing you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be helping people.
I love that. I love the gauge of, if it's building or taking away your energy as a way to tell if it's the right thing to do. I love that.
Yeah, there's a belief that sets us up. There's a negative belief that sets us up for failure that was taught to us by probably one of our parents, and that is that a good person works hard. And that's simply not true.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, geez.
A good person works hard. Because I love where you're going with that.
Yeah. So like my dad taught me to work hard.
Right.
And over the years, I realized that he instilled in me that hard work was a noble thing. So I always chose work that was hard, which meant I was probably choosing work that I wasn't supposed to be doing, because the fact that it was hard is what made it good. And so this is extremely prominent. I would say there's two communities, which I've been a part of both, that are the epitome of this, and it's the fitness community and it's the military. And both those communities attract people who live their life by the fact they truly believe that a good person, if you're bad people don't work hard and good people work hard. And so instead of just working hard, they choose to make their work hard. So the moment your work starts feeling easy, you find ways to make it hard. You ever hear the term?
Holy shit. You're blowing my mind. I love that.
You're welcome. You blew my mind when I realized it too.
I like that.
So what we do as Americans, because what I found is this is not a human thing. This is an American thing. You go to some other countries and you start talking about working hard and they look at you sideways. And so what we've been somehow, it's been put into our program that a good person works hard. So the moment work starts feeling easy, we figure out ways to make it hard, which makes it very difficult. So I am in the business of helping gym owners, right? And it's fascinating to me, and I used to be the same way. It's fascinating how it's as if they're choosing to make their life as hard as possible. And it's because the program that's running deep down inside is, if my work is not hard, then I'm not doing it right. And so what they'll do is they'll turn down help. They'll turn down having, they'll subconsciously choose to have a shitty website. They'll subconsciously choose to not learn how to do sales properly. They'll subconsciously choose not to do contracts and they'll make up a lot of other stories on why they are or are not doing those things. But the truth of it is they know that if they do those things, their work will become easy, and that's not noble.
Right. And that programming, the amount of suffering or pain that you're feeling is the gauge of if you're doing the right thing, right?
No doubt. Yep.
Wow. So how do you
my personal mantra
oh, I'm
for
sorry,
this
go
year
ahead.
is actually work easy. I'm not
Work
allowed
easy.
to use the word work hard in reference to what I do.
So how do you I don't know what the right word is, connect or meld to get, like, how do you weed out like just straight up laziness? Because what you don't want in any situation is laziness. If you're running a business, you don't want to be lazy. You don't want to hire lazy people. So how do the two thoughts kind of interact?
There's no such thing as laziness. People are inherently motivated. And our job as leaders is to not demotivate them.
Right.
And so if somebody is behaving in what we would label as a lazy thing, what's really happening is they've been demotivated somehow. So they're either not doing they're not doing the right job, they're not placed in the right position, or the way that somebody is leading is demotivating them. So I think people are naturally in a state of high motivation, unless and anyone who's not is, look at the leadership or look at the job they chose. They may have put themselves there, but I don't actually think anyone's lazy. I truly believe that everybody is doing the best they can do with what they have up to this point,
right.
And they just haven't been given the tools, or they haven't been given the right direction, or something like that. So if somebody's working for you and they are lazy, you've either put them in the wrong position, or you have led them in a way that causes them
right.
to be demotivated.
That's killer. All right, I wanna talk about business for a little bit, and then we'll wrap it up. So we were talking about before we got on the show about social media, and when I went to that first mastermind with you guys, you started talking about Facebook and Instagram, and I started to check out, and I think I said to the group, like, I just deleted my Facebook account. I don't think I had Instagram. And I don't believe in it. I feel like it disconnects me with people, and I like compulsively check it when I have it. And a lot of people laughed and said, they understood, but that's silly that I wasn't going to. It was going to be hard to reach my potential without it. Can you kind of speak to the power of social media a little bit for the business owner and the gym owner?
Yeah, I think I can only talk about my own experience, and for me, I mean, if you're using YouTube or podcast, I mean, that's social media. So in a way, because there's interactions that happen there, for one. But for me, it's my duty to use social media, because part of the reason that I'm here on this earth is to serve as a positive role model. And the way in which for me to reach the most amount of people with a positive message is by using social media. That's doing Facebook Lives, that's posting to Instagram. And if you watch my social media, you'll see a theme, or you'll see several themes that are all my job is to change the behaviors, thoughts, and feelings of others. So everything that I do is with the purpose of helping others. If there was a time I hated social media when I was posting things so I could get attention and so that I could get likes, and I was trying to build my page and see how many people I could get to follow me, because it's good for the business. But the moment that my mentality shifted to posting things that I think will help other people improve their lives, it became very fulfilling, a lot of fun, and it's really felt really good to me. I don't get nearly as much likes on my social media as I used to, and that's okay. But I would much rather impact, a few hundred people at a really high level than to collect a bunch of people of me posting cheeseburgers and donuts.
Right. Yeah. Consistent with your quality over quantity kind of theme that you started out with. I love that analogy, man. What behaviors and mindsets separate the successful gym owners and other entrepreneurs from ones that either, are considered unsuccessful or quit or other?
Well, I think successful entrepreneurs, I would say unsuccessful entrepreneurs tend to think that their product or service is the business, instead of being a part of the business. I think the thing that hurts most business owners is that assumption is that I should be able to just be the best at what I do, and that would be good enough, and people should just be lining up the door. Well, that's not true. If you are that person and you don't want to do the other stuff, please go work for somebody else. You should not be running your business. So the business is made up of a few different components. You have the fulfillment and service part. You have sales and marketing. You have administration, and then and those are the really big operations administration. Those are the really big components of it. And so I don't know hardly any businesses where the service or the fulfillment, any successful business I know, isn't doing more than 50% of the revenue is going into that thing, into the service or product directly. So what ends up happening is people think that they can do half of the business and be successful. That's what's hurting most business owners, is they have this false belief. And they have this false belief for, it's because it's what they see. And there have been some business leaders in the past that have made some comments that would lead people to believe those things. So I won't name names. People can figure it out. Now, if people could just consider that marketing is just you getting your message out there and you impacting as many lives as possible, that sounds a lot better than the marketing that they tried to shove down your throat in your MBA program at school.
Right.
So for me, marketing is my duty, because if I want to impact as many lives as possible, I got to market the shit out of everything that I do.
Right.
So, as an entrepreneur, we go back to, are you doing the thing you're supposed to be doing, or are you doing something just to make a buck? Because if you're just trying to make a buck, guess what? In a year or two, you're going to hate your job. You just painted yourself into a corner. The entrepreneurs that really love what they do and are really successful are the ones that they love their product. They love talking about it. They love marketing it, and they love selling it. So, I think that, successful entrepreneurs just got to be, if you want to be successful there, you have to love every part of your business and give it the attention it deserves. Wherever you put your attention will grow. And if you're having a hard time getting the word out about your service or something like that, then it just means that you haven't put attention into letting people know that you exist.
Right.
So I think it's really funny that people think they can just do it, put together a thing, and then sit there and expect that people are going to come knocking on it and ask them to buy the thing they built. It's like, no, you have to go out and tell people. And there's a ton of people out there trying to get everyone's attention. So that's who you're competing with. That's just it's called life, and you can choose to participate or not.
Right. I love the idea that if you are one of those people that really believes in the product that you've created, in the gym that you've created, the culture, the the programming, everything, then not to put energy and time and resources into marketing is a disservice, because you're not allowing more people to have this amazing product that you really believe in.
Yeah, it's a selfish thing to do. It's extremely selfish to make something amazing and not share it with the world.
Right. I love it, man. So you guys had a super successful and still have a super successful business in Barbell Shrugged. What was it that led to you branching out and starting Barbell Business?
A lot of it was just people asking us for help in that area. So we launched the Barbell Business podcast. And then at the time, the thing that we knew best to do was to, start a mastermind group, and we did put together a product, which was basically the system that we use to get new members into Faction Strength and Conditioning, the gym that Doug and I used to run. And we ran that for a while, and then we attracted some guys that created an amazing product called Barbell Logic. And so, and now it's kind of turned into this thing. I've gotten really passionate about it because with Barbell Shrugged, we can impact, thousands of athletes and this and that. But what I really believe is that when we help gym owners out, we can impact even more lives. We can really dig in deep, and we can help these gym owners deliver a superior product and service. We can actually, some of the things we do is we actually help take over the sales and marketing. We help automate as much of the sales and marketing so the gym owner doesn't have to focus on it as much, and so that they can get back to producing a superior product. So our goal all around is to help the average person be more healthy. And we really believe the way to do that right now is to enable CrossFit gyms to be as successful as possible. So that's where we're putting our attention.
That's awesome, man. Can you talk a little bit more about what Barbell Logic is?
Sure. Barbell Logic is a marketing automation system. So all the things that you're probably not doing, we just do it for you. But if a gym owner were to buy it, they would get an entire website. They would get a lot of marketing assets. They would get email automation. If a client comes to a Barbell Logic website and we find out that they're interested in fat loss versus muscle gain, or muscle gain versus fat loss, or performance or CrossFit or whatever, we segment them into a different messaging. So we then start marketing to that person based on the things that they really want to show up at the gym for. So if somebody's interested in fat loss, we're not marketing to them, these crazy 22-year-old CrossFit Games athletes. We're probably marketing to them with, someone who's a 40-year-old woman who is, really putting in the work, and we're marketing to that person around giving them information for fat loss. We're not teaching them maybe how to do pull-ups, because someone who wants to lose weight doesn't necessarily need to learn how to do kipping pull-ups yet. So what we do is we've created this marketing automation system where we speak directly to the client for what it is that they want to hear in order to take action and take change in their life.
That's awesome, man. With all of these new, there's a lot of new gym. There are a lot of new companies coming out that are helping people with their marketing and their sales and running their businesses. How can people know who to trust?
I think that, shop around, talk to the people. It's kind of like, ask when someone says, which CrossFit gym should I go to in that town? I've gotten to a point where I'm like, go to at least 3 or 4 and try them out. I used to tell this when I was running my own gym, and people go like, how is your gym the best? I'm like, don't listen to me, because you're not going to. Why don't you just go try out everybody else and tell me which one you like best? Mm-hmm. And so I believe that anyone who is in the business of trying to help gym owners is passionate about what they're doing. There's no doubt in my mind about that. What I see is let's see, how am I going to say this? Some people are repeating what other people are saying, and some people are teaching business principles. Mm-hmm. So go to a company that is teaching business principles, and they're not trying to sell you a one-size-fits-all program. So, and then I would also recommend, it sounds a lot like fitness, right? You don't want to go to If you want the best program, you wouldn't do what everyone's doing. You would get a coach to program for you specifically. It's kind of what we do with Logic, and that's just what we do with Barbell Business as a whole. Is we teach business principles, not just a method and shove it down people's throats.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, make your calls, see what makes sense. I will say, I'm going to do this one thing. If there is a consultant telling you not to do gym contracts, just run.
Right.
So that's all. That's the one thing. That's the thing that bothers me, is because it's irresponsible. And it kind of makes me angry. Is that when people are kind of saying, it's the old model. It used to work when there was 1 or 2 CrossFit gyms in town. But when you walk around and I can throw a brick down the street and hit 3, there's no way to have stability in your facility without that. So you have a contract when you lease a building. You're in it for that. Every successful gym in the world that's not CrossFit, they do contracts. The contract is 2 things that people get scared of, and that is charging enough money for it to be sustainable, and then asking people to sign contracts. And what you're doing is, as a coach, if you are afraid to ask your clients to make a commitment, a financial commitment, then you shouldn't be a coach, because it is your job to keep your clients accountable. And the level of commitment that someone's willing to make financially is going to be indicative of the level of commitment that they're going to make to their health and fitness. And so if that is a human behavior principle, that is a business principle, and I'm sure somebody is getting away with it somewhere, but every gym I talk to that is, I can't seem to get past 85 or 90 members, that usually means they're doing a pretty good job and they're just not doing contracts yet.
Wow.
Or, yeah, it's pretty common. That's the number. I can't break 90. I can't break 80. It's around 85. And then I go, and then we advise them to do contracts. Next thing you know, they're like, we have 150 members. We're stable. We can buy new equipment. We can pay our coaches. All of a sudden, the quality of their service skyrockets because they can now pay people and have the equipment they need. It's interesting. And if they raise their prices, they start getting people showing up more often. So
I'll say this too: if you're out there shopping, if you're a gym owner out there shopping for or interested in help running your business, just see if they offer samples, right? If they offer samples, you can get some free information from them and see if that information helps you. Barbell Business offers an amazing podcast. Y'all do weekly, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's just it's a no-brainer. Like, it doesn't hurt you to sit down and listen to a podcast or 2, browse a blog, stuff like that. If someone doesn't offer that, then it could be a very expensive kind of research endeavor. So there are enough of them out there that are offering some free information that can kind of give you an idea of if you can trust them or not. So
it blows my mind how many I drop into gyms really frequently because I travel so much, and I ask the gym owners, they're like, I know you from Barbell Shrugged. I'm like, and do you listen to Barbell Business? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, what do you do for, business education? They just kind of shrug their shoulders. I'm like, so if you're struggling, has everything to do with the fact that you're not putting your attention into the business.
Right. I want to finish off with a question that I actually stole from you a couple years ago, and I've asked it a few times on this show, and I want to kind of check in with what your answer is at this point in your life. So the question was, what do you want to make absurd in 20 years? And for those of you who haven't heard this question yet, Mike he brought this up to us in one of his masterminds, and he explained it like this: 20 years ago, it was commonplace to see a grocery store clerk smoking a cigarette. Today, it's absurd. 20 years ago, it was commonplace to see someone throwing an entire bag of litter or trash out of the window. Today, that's absurd. So what do you want to make absurd?
I want to make it absurd that people are. I want it to be absurd that people don't think they are responsible and have the power to impact their own lives, and design it the way that they know it could be.
Love it, man. All right, where can people keep up with you and find out more about you?
Yeah, make sure to check out barbellshrugged.com, barbellbusiness.com. If you're a gym owner, we actually have a challenge for you. So if you go over to Barbell Business, there's like a 5-day free challenge where you can go through it, and we actually help you map out how to create some marketing strategies for your business. Yeah, make sure to give us a follow on the fan pages on Facebook and Instagram for all those things. I personally am looking to. I'll let out a little secret on your show. I'm going to be launching my own personal podcast in the next, 3-4 months. So make sure to follow me personally on my social media on Instagram and Facebook, and I have a Facebook fan page, just Mike Bledsoe, and I'll be announcing when that posts up. It's going to be a lot of fun because the personal one, I'm going to get into like all the other stuff that's not fitness or entrepreneurship. So some of the subjects that you and I dived into today.
Right. I'm sure it'll lead with dived into lots of tantric talk, guys. So be sure to tune into that. Oh, I know you too well, brother. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time, Mike. This was a blast. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Later, brother.